Hi everybody, I welcome you to this free live session that's hosted for you exclusively by TalentSprint. The chat is open for you. I can see a lot of you posting notes. Good evening everybody and welcome once again. You all are aware why are you in this session. As you know that every Wednesday from 6 o'clock onwards we have these free live sessions, and in today's session, we will particularly discuss a few question types which we have identified from the last 2 weeks as problem areas. You're all aware of TIA, the artificial bot, who gives you a very personalized feedback about what is the starting point of your preparation, what are your strength areas, what are the areas that you can actually improve upon. So essentially, this particular free live session is for us to discuss a few questions which we think and we checked via the TR report are certain areas that you all need help in. And you all are aware that TalentSprint has been conducting these free live sessions in the free academy. You all are aware that the notification of the SBI Prelims is already out and it is scheduled for the 29th of April, correct? So I would request everybody to maybe focus on the session and let's see how best we can utilize these couple of maybe minutes that we have with us. So it's roughly about an hour session. I have compiled a couple of questions for you, which are primarily from the most popular topic, parajumbles. You all know the pattern of questions that are asked. So in this All India mock test that was taken by students in the last 2 weeks, I have taken a selected few questions which I have identified as challenging questions, and we will discuss some strategies and techniques to approach those questions. So if you're all ready and everyone is ready to get started with discussing the questions, I can share a presentation with you which has these questions and we can take that one by one. Are you all ready? So I can see a lot of people exchanging notes on the screen. So I'm sure you're all logged into this session, keeping in mind the questions for English, for the previous mock test, All India mock test that was taken by students. So please ensure that you're all focusing on the questions that we're going to discuss, right? So I'm going to very quickly share a screen with you which has the questions and we'll take them one by one. Right? Are you all ready? Maybe a thumbs up from your side can help me start. All right, great. So I think Prashant, Shiva, okay. All right, so Shiva says he's ready, and so does. Okay, we have a couple of you saying ready, ma'am. So let's get started. Right. So the first question that we identified, one of the most popular questions, is the closed test question type. You all know what is tested in this particular question type. Right? So like you see in this particular question, we have few blanks, and what actually is tested in a closed test question is contextually fitting vocabulary. So one has to be really sharp in identifying the keywords in and around the blank that has been asked, and that would help you eliminate options as well as arrive at the correct answer. So let's start off with the first one. NASA has dash tested its donut-shaped inflatable heat shield technology that works like a parachute. Okay, let's take this first part of the sentence. Now, NASA has. What do you think? What do you think should this particular blank take? So the moment you say NASA, okay, that's the subject that you're talking about. Now, followed by a subject should be a verb. So has what? So has followed by a verb represents a present perfect tense, okay? And either that can be an option, or if I may just say that you want to highlight the verb. Now, in this case, when you say NASA has tested, this is already a verb, has tested. Now, what is the word form that actually highlights a verb? That should be an adverb. If you look at that, that choice of word form, then we see that all the options that we have are adverbs. All right. Now we have to see what is a word that will be contextually fitting. So when something has worked, some particular project has been successful. For example, NASA is always up to creating something different, something new. So winningly does not apply, sensationally, contextually not fitting, victoriously, ultimately, do not really apply here. So yes, successfully is the correct answer. So this is how we look at contextually fitting words. So when you talk of NASA as an organization, the next thing that you talk of is launch and launching of projects, and whether it's successful or whether it's unsuccessful. So in this case, it has successfully tested. That works like a parachute and will dash a spacecraft. Now, let's look at the options. Now, if some particular project has been successful, so obviously it is not going to impede anything. Okay, so out of the 5 options available here, we can rule out impede, we can rule out disable. We can look at facilitate, enable, and ease. Right? So because these 3 are positive verbs. Now let's see which of the 3 applies contextually here. Now, what is the meaning of facilitate and what is the meaning of enable? So according to me, ease also is not contextually fitting. But if I were to compare between facilitate and enable, we need to know the thin difference between enable and facilitate. Now, facilitate also means to ease things, like facilitating a session or facilitating a program where you make things easy. So if you look at the 5th and the 2nd, they more or less mean the same. Enable is something that gives you a positive push. It doesn't ease, but it gives you a positive push in a particular direction. So it helps, and it's not about easing or making things difficult, but it aids. And that's the reason enable is a contextually fitting word. So like Prashant mentioned that yes, enable is the right word, and we just discussed why is facilitate or ease, why are facilitate and ease not the correct responses. There is a very thin line of difference between facilitate and enable. Facilitate also means to make things easy, but enable means to positively push it towards achieving something. And that is, whenever there's a project, you talk about things that actually make a difference in the positive direction, and hence the word enable. Right? Okay, let's move on. Right, so this is the passage continued. Let's look at the other blanks. So before NASA used its new inflatable technology for slowing aircraft that are entering the atmosphere of other planets, it'll first need to be packed into the confines of a rocket. Now you're getting an idea of what is being talked about. Now engineers dash the technology to test by packing a donut-shaped test article. Let's observe this sentence. Engineers, we know, is the subject that we are talking about. Absolutely, Gurpreet. the chat has just appeared, and you're absolutely right. Facilitate means to make things easier. However, enable means to allow or to give a positive push in a direction, particular direction. All right, let's get back to this. Okay, now when you say engineers, now engineers is a subject. The moment you say subject, after every subject, there should be a verb followed by an object. Now we also know that a subject and verb should agree. Yeah, a subject and verb should agree. So based on the concept of subject-verb agreement, there are a couple of things that we can immediately reject. And the first is ingenious sets. This we can reject based on subject-verb agreement concept. Because whenever you have a plural subject, you should have a plural verb. And sets is a singular verb. We all know that a plural noun, a plural regular noun like engineer, when an S is added, becomes engineer, which is a regular noun, and when S is added to it, it becomes plural. And so is true for table, fans, or any common nouns for that matter. Unless it is an irregular noun like, I'd say, like foot, feet, or tooth, teeth, most of the nouns or regular nouns, when added an S or ES, becomes plural. So this being a plural subject, the verb should not take an S. So we rule out the first as an option. So engineers dash the technology to test. Now, whenever there's something that's been designed or planned, you don't locate technology. So we rule out locate. Now, rejected the technology to test. Here, we are not rejecting, okay? However, either it can be lay or put. These are the only two options available. Now, whenever you are dash something to test, when you're trying something, the word that contextually fits there is put. So we rule out lay. So there are certain words which hold true in a particular context. So whenever it's technology or an experiment, it is, and when you're trying something, you always put to test. Excellent. Nasima, you're absolutely right. Let's move on to the fourth one. With a diameter of 9 feet and also known as a torus, dash, what would happen before a space mission? Now, what is the answer here? So engineers put the technology to test by packing a donut-shaped test article with a diameter of 9 feet and also known as a torus to do something, correct? Now, is it to kindle or to handle? All of these are infinitives. To mimic, obviously, does not apply here. But whenever before a real mission, we actually do a simulation. Okay, so if you see, to mimic or to conjure or to handle or to kindle, the most contextually fitting word here is to simulate. Absolutely right. Bang on, Priyanka, you've got the word right. So whenever there's, let's say there is an interview, we do a couple of simulation rounds before, let's say, a person gets the license. Okay, there are a lot of simulations before a driving school says that, okay, a person is capable of driving. There are a lot of simulations. So it's like a mock drive that happens before the real event, and that word is called simulate. Okay, excellent. Let's move on to the fifth one, which is the last question of the closed test type. The technology will. Now, what are we talking of? The technology, which is the subject here. The technology will do what? Will is a modal. We all know will, would, shall, should, can, could. So the following verb should be in the V1 form. Let's all understand that. The technology will dash the delivery of heavy cargo, science instruments, and people to other worlds. Now, legal, which is an adjective, does not apply here. Illegible, again, does not apply here, which is again an adjective, because you have to use the V1 form of the verb. Okay, V1 form. Because whenever you have a modal, the form that you have is modal plus V1. Right? I'm sure all of you know this. So because the modal is will here, hence we can rule out 5, we can rule out 2. So, and also we can rule out eligible, which again is an adjective. So we are looking at V1. So we rule out all adjectives. Now we have stop, we have enable. Now these two words are antonyms. Okay, they are opposite in meaning to each other. Now let's see, there is a technology which has enabled something which has shown a positive result. So obviously it's not going to stop the delivery. It's in fact going to enhance or enable. Absolutely right. So we rule out in the context, a negative word cannot fit in. So for 5, we can use the third option. Right? So I think Priya, Avinash, Piyushi, Nasima, and I'm sure many more have got it right. Let's move on. So this was essentially about the cloze test. Okay. So what we've identified now, what are the strategies? Let's say if I have to enlist 2 things that you have to remember for cloze test. Now some of you may say, ma'am, a strong vocabulary can help us. Well, I do agree. Having a great command on vocabulary is always an advantage, but strategically answering questions makes a lot of difference. All right, so you have to remember this. Now, like I said, this was one of the question types, and let's move on to one of the most popular and the worst hit question type, if I may say. So most of the tips that we share, most of the sessions that we do, we have noticed that the questions related to vocabulary or the questions related to parajumbles or cloze test are the worst hit areas. All right. So let us discuss questions, and the best way to learn is through questions. It is not through just strategies or through just some theory. It is discussing questions. Okay. Let's move on. All right. Now this is also, like I said, vocabulary is also one of the most important areas. Now vocabulary, like I said, is not just about knowing synonyms and antonyms. Now there are different ways in which questions are asked. It can be in the form of synonyms, antonyms. It can be with respect to a reading comprehension passage. And it can be a sentence with 2 blanks. Okay. So before I take or start discussing, let's quickly answer Gurpreet's question. Yes, Gurpreet, please go ahead with your question. All right, Gurpreet, I really appreciate the fact that you have or you follow a great protocol when you have to ask the question, which is excellent. All right, so if you really need to interrupt somebody, there is a way to do it, and I think Gurpreet really deserves a loud round of applause for doing it in the right way. Yes, Gurpreet, I'm waiting for your question. Or let's do one thing. I think we can park some 3 or 4 questions to be put in the end. Okay. All right, let's move on. We can take up 1 or 2 questions towards the end of this session to ensure that we use the time effectively, because sometimes for your messages to appear, there can be a delay, and in the process, we may lose out some time, okay? Right. So the instruction manual that came with the computer is no masterpiece of dash pros, because its instructions are so dash that we still do not know how to set up the computer. Okay. Now, let's look at this question. Okay, Gurpreet, I see that your question is appearing now. We have already started off with another set of questions. Let us park this doubt of yours, which we can discuss at around 6:40, because okay. Yeah, we are going to take that. Okay, we are going to take this question. That's the objective of choosing this entire set of questions, because I knew that these are the things that would confuse you. All right, so it's very important for us to understand a few strategies. All right, I will clarify that. I'll try my best to clarify your doubts. Okay, Gurpreet and Venkat. All right, so the instruction manual that came with the computer is no masterpiece of dash pros. Okay, because its instructions are so dash that we still do not know. Now, what is the clue phrase here? We still do not know. Now, think about it. If something is very clear, something is crisp and easy to understand, why would someone not know how to set up the computer? And so now we have to choose words which are in contrast to each other. Okay. Now the instruction manual that came with the computer is no masterpiece of. Now look at a pair of words which are antonyms of each other. Okay. So confused and varied. Confused and varied. Again, varied shows something which is different, which is mixed up, or in other words, which is confused. So we rule out confused. Now, let's say worthless and clear. Worthless is something that has some value, but that is not a direct antonym of clear. Valuable and intelligent, both of them appear. Valuable is something that is important. Again, intelligent, they are two very positive words. They're not antonyms. So let's look at clear and garbled. Okay. No masterpiece of dash pros. So in the first, there is a negative word here, so there has to be a positive word here, because there is a negative expression here. Okay, its instructions are so garbled. Garbled means something which is not clear, something which is absolutely messy. So these two words are antonyms of each other, are antonyms. Okay, so if I say clear, the opposite of clear would be garbled. If I say crisp or clear, the opposite will be garbled or messed up, messy. Okay, so like I said, you rule out responses. In this case, if you look at are so dash that we still do not know how to set up the computer. If the instruction manual were clear, then obviously you will be able to set up the computer, which means its instructions are so. Can you say instructions are so clear that we cannot set up the computer? The answer is no. So it has to be garbled. It has to be garbled here, and no masterpiece of clear prose. Clear prose means something which has been mentioned clearly. All right. So we have to see what does the context. There are certain clue words or clue phrases which help us arrive at a particular response. All right. So that's something that you need to look for when you see a pair of words that you have to choose. And the first, like I said, learn how to eliminate responses and then choose responses. So the correct answer would be clear and garbled for this question. Okay. As many students know, a or an dash response, if skillfully worded, can imply at least a superficial dash of knowledge about the subject. Let's try to understand what does it mean. Okay. Now, there is a condition, if skillfully worded. Now, tell me something that if there is a very clear response, there should not be an if condition attached to it, right? So, what are you trying to? Let us rule out certain responses. So, when something is elegant, let's rule out 4. How do we rule out? Let's look at the first option, elegant and lack. So, as many students know, an elegant response if skillfully worded. Now, when you say elegant itself means something that is skillfully worded. You don't have to use the if condition. All right. So, as many students know, an elegant response is automatically ruled out. Okay. Now, let's see. We have garbled and ignorance. All right. Now, superficial ignorance of knowledge. Now, what are we trying to understand in this? Basically, they're trying to say through this sentence that sometimes a response which is not so clear, if it is skillfully worded, that means if the right set of words have been used even for something that is not very clear, then it appears like the person knows few things. It appears, please mark my word, it appears. So when you say it appears but does not exist in real, it means it is superficial. It is superficial. So superficial means something that is not real. So if something is not real, then it is like a mask. For example, there are some people, when they wear a mask, what is it that you do? You actually hide the real face. The same thing is, if an unclear response, if it is skillfully worded, it appears like there is a superficial, let's say, sheet of knowledge. You have a mask of knowledge. So out of these options available, ambiguous is the word which means unclear. Okay, something which is uncertain. And veneer, if you all understand, it is like a noun, right? So you use it while in furniture making. You have a lot of wooden material available. So it's like a veneer is a very high quality thin sheet of wood which is put atop the regular solid wood to make it appear classy. Okay, it's not solid wood. It is just a regular wood, or even for that matter, if I may say, treated wood, or there are different types of wood which may not be solid wood. So what we do is we cover it with veneer to hide the actual wood, which may not be of a great quality. So basically, in this case, it is ambiguous and veneer. Veneer is superficial. Superficial is an adjective. We are looking at a noun after that, superficial. Veneer of knowledge. Veneer refers to like a sheet of fine quality wood. Okay, so something that's actually clear, then that need not be skillfully worded, right? What is skillfully? Where you try to put it in a different way. Okay, so inarticulate is not right. Garbled and ignorance don't apply. Garbled response is fine, but superficial ignorance of knowledge. Now, when something is superficial, what is ignorance of knowledge? And ignorance and skillfully worded don't go together. Okay, so basically you're trying to say there's a thin sheet of knowledge which appears like it is true. Okay, for some students. So it is ambiguous and veneer. Right? Okay, now being a bit hesitant about dash the man as a complete fraud he suspected him to be. Now, being a bit hesitant, what's the keyword that you're supposed to look at here? Hesitant. So when you're hesitant, you're unsure. Okay, and when you're unsure, then let's see what are the options that we have. Okay, about what the man as a complete fraud. Now, when you want to declare somebody as, negatively, then that's not called mocking or ridiculing. Okay, you are basically declaring him, or you are actually, I would say, the person is, when you say be bit hesitant about denouncing, is when you actually pull him out and you declare him as somebody who's completely fraud, basically. Okay, you reject him or you isolate him totally. So that's called denouncing. Okay, that's an extreme word. So so when you say denouncing is the first word here. So what is debunking? When you Bill chose to attack the weaker points of his theory, debunking one by one. Debunking means exposing, basically. Exposing one by one. Okay, so being a bit hesitant about denouncing the man as complete fraud, he suspected him to be. So although he suspected that the man is completely fraud, but he couldn't completely do so. So he started attacking the weaker points of his theory, exposing them one by one. So immediately not jumping into a conclusion, but exposing them one by one, which is when you talk of fraud and suspect, hesitant, the words that contextually fit are denouncing and debunking. Right? Let's move on. Confused and dash, Sham fumbled to make sense of seemingly inconsistent statements. So when you say, all right, maybe you can, Shiva, if you're unable to see the screen, it could just be a very temporary issue. What I can suggest is just go to, click on the full screen rather than just watching the inset of it. Okay, that's one of the issues that some students face. So when somebody is confused, all right, so what are the words that you look here? So we are looking at confused, sham, and dash sham. So we're looking at adjectives which are synonyms of confused. Okay, it can be muddled or incoherent. Okay, so when you say philosophical, it doesn't apply. None of the other options apply. Now, confused and muddled. Muddled also means confused. Incoherent also means something which does not have a logical sequence. So for me, I can eliminate other responses and try to see how will I choose between 2 and 4. Okay. So when you say muddled, and then the second word is aware of. So if someone has inconsistent statements, that shows there is no coherence. So it is incoherent. Okay. So when we are incoherent, fumbled to make sense of seemingly inconsistent statements, dash the impatience of his listeners. So when somebody continues to make or throw a list of inconsistent statements, it means he is not paying attention to the impatient listeners. Okay, so when somebody is not paying attention to, the word is oblivious, where you are not paying attention to. So we rule out muddled and aware of. So muddled and incoherent appeared like they are contextually fitting, but when we looked at the second set of words, in the second set of words, oblivious to was more contextually fitting. All right. Okay. Now this is also very interesting. This is a set of questions like parajumbles, if you may call it. Okay. You have sentence 1 and sentence 6 already given, and you have 4 sentences which you have to put in the right order. So in this, the topic sentence has already been identified. In democratic countries, men are equal before law and have a voice in deciding how and by whom they shall be governed. Okay? Now, that's the first sentence. Now, when you say and they live, if you look at the P, while some people live in luxury, so that has got nothing to do with where they stay. So P cannot be the top second sentence in continuation. Let's look at Q. But with respect to sharing of money, which means the sharing of the food and clothing and houses and books, and so on, the system is still very unfair and have a voice in deciding how and whom they shall be governed. And then contextually fitting is the Q option. The Q option. Okay. So when I see that after S1, the Q follows, so in this case, I can rule out 2 and 4 automatically. Now let's see whether it should be QRSP or QPSR. Now, after Q, but with respect to sharing of money, which means the sharing of food and clothing, the system is still very unfair. Now, when you say system is unfair, you have to give some instances or examples or data supported with some facts. Why do you call a system unfair? So, if you look at P, the P sentence says, while some people live in luxury, many have not even enough to drink and wear. Now, that's where the system being unfair is proved. So, after Q comes P. Ideally, if I were in your place, I would just go ahead and without even looking, I would just mark this option and move ahead, right? But let's quickly discuss if we have decided Q and P are there, so obviously that's the only option we have, so we rule this out. But let's also quickly see the link. All right, so QPS. Even in the finest of world cities, thousands of people live in dreadful surroundings. So that's another instance. And then you have R, where there are examples of people living in dreadful surroundings, where 5 or 6 persons live in a single room. So that's pretty dreadful, okay? R is pretty dreadful. And then let's see if we can connect R to S6. Yes. Because here we are talking about rooms, and the final sentence also has are too poor to afford another room. So that's the keyword to join R and S6. All right. So this is how we connect, and out of the available options, the option that fits and logically applies to this parajumble is number 3. That's the correct answer. Okay. Let's look at one more. Again, we have S1 to S6. Okay. So large parts of Karnataka are located in the drought-prone rain shadow of the Western Ghats, characterized by low and unreliable rainfall. Okay. Now let's see. Now, when we look at the P sentence, it says it refers to some project which we have not introduced yet. Okay, so which is the sentence where the word project and the name of the project that has been introduced? So the Upper Krishna project, all right, is being executed in the drought-prone northeastern part of Karnataka, about 456 kilometers from Bangalore, in the district of Gulbarga, Raichur, Bagalkot, and Bijapur. All right. So we have identified that Q is the second sentence because you are introducing a project. So we rule out all other options, and we can immediately say third is the answer. But let's also quickly see the sequence. Now you know, once you've mentioned the project, you have a definite article, the, referring to the project. So after which comes P. Okay, because of the definite article, the. Correct? And after that, QP, then we have the population in this area, because between Krishna and Bhima river. So that is referring to a particular area. So in this area applies here. In this area, what does this refer to? This demonstrative adjective refers to the area between Krishna and Bhima rivers. All right. So QPSR is the correct answer. So until now we've discussed few questions related to vocabulary where there's a fill in the blank and you have two blanks and how to eliminate responses. That is one of the most important techniques of approaching a particular question. We've also looked at two examples of para-jumbles. All these questions, if I may just reiterate, have been asked in the All India mock test that has been that is conducted for everybody pan-India, and the best thing about these tests is that you get personalized reports in your email, okay? And what are those personalized reports? Do you think it's physically possible for a human to go ahead and do that? The answer is no. So we have an artificial bot which analyzes your performance, analyzes your paper, identifies your areas, identifies the areas that you need to improve upon, and gives you a plan of action, okay? Suggestive study plan. So it's really critical. It is very important to take these tests, and that really helps. All right. Okay. Let's move on. Final set of questions. These are finding errors. So you know that finding errors, any of the 21 components of grammar can be asked in this question type, right? It can be a prepositional error. It can be a conjunction error. It can be a phrasal verb related error or subject verb agreement related error. So I have enlisted a list of 5 questions. Let's see what are the different types of errors that are tested here. All right. Right. So this is the first. He was kicked out to copy answers. Okay. Now he was kicked out. Now he was. Let's analyze it part for part. He was. It's absolutely correct. Now he was kicked out. Also appears right. Okay. He was kicked out to copy answers. Now, you can also watch one of these videos that we have posted on YouTube, which tells the difference between to and for, which is very important. So where is to used and where is for used, okay? He was kicked out. When you have to use to, it has to be followed by a verb, okay? And if you have to use for, okay, for something he was done, kicked out for a reason, for an objective, for a motive. Then when you use for, it has to be followed by a noun. So if you say he was kicked out to copy answers, do you think he was asked to leave the classroom so that he can do and copy answers? The answer is no, okay? So when you, it is a prepositional error, you guessed it right, okay? So where to should be replaced by for, but it's also important for you to know when you use for, you should follow it by a noun, okay? So when you say noun, it has to be a gerund, and when it is a gerund, it should be for copying with an ing. Verb plus ing makes it a gerund. So in this case, he was kicked out, let's say from a classroom or the examination hall for copying answers. Right, let's move on. I hope you guys are able to understand these concepts, because these are a few things that if go unnoticed, it may just cost you a a mark, or even I would say 1.25 in the exam. All right. Okay, more than one employee. Okay, now more than one employee. The moment you say more than one, okay, it should be followed by a singular verb. In this case, were killed. Although the sentence is in passive form, but it should not be were killed. It is a subject-verb agreement related error. So more than one employee, whenever you have more than one, okay, but then although it refers to a plural number, yet everything is singular here mentioned, so the corresponding verb also has to be singular, so it should be was. All right. So I can see there's a lot of discussion about books and notes being exchanged. I think it'd be really nice if you can just answer and post your responses, because that would keep the session interactive, because we're going to close in another 5 minutes. So we have another 2 or 3 questions, so make sure you're paying attention and you don't miss out, okay? In case you've missed out on the test, at least you don't miss out on the discussion. All right, Seema was popular with her classmates. Now, when someone's popular, people obviously go to that person, correct? Now, she was popular with her classmates, that she always had some people coming to her. So, whenever somebody is popular, that is a statement that you've made. So, because of this, there is a result of her popularity. Now, when you express result, the words that you use are, the transition words are therefore, hence, so, etc. Right? It cannot be that. So, Seema was popular with her classmates. Therefore, she always had some people coming to her for advice, or hence, she always had some people coming to her for advice. So, the part that has an error is part 2. Okay? So, that is not the correct transition here. After a lot of persuasion, okay, persuasion means convincing. After a lot of persuasion, the villagers agreed to participate in the family welfare program. So let's check it part by part. After a lot of persuasion appears right. Villagers agreed to appears right. Agreed to participate, the infinitive form is also correct. Participate in the family welfare program. So maybe there is a specific family welfare program, which is absolutely right. So this particular question has no error. Okay, no error. Now this is pretty interesting. To make him succeed, the thing to do is to punish him. Okay, to make somebody succeed, the thing to do is to punish him. So why would you punish somebody? To make somebody successful, or to help somebody succeed. And if punishment is the only thing that would lead to his success, and let's say you have a contrast word until he does try. Okay, so if somebody is not trying, the thing is to punish him till he starts trying. So when you have until, you should not have a negation of the verb. Okay, until he tries or until he does try. So the part that has an error here is part 3. Okay, part 3 has an error. And what is it? Whenever you have until, the not should not be there. It should be until he tries or he does try. All right. All right, guys. Well, that was it. Those were a few set of questions chosen from different question types. Obviously, based on the All India performance and the analysis, so we chose those particular topics where we thought that discussing those questions should help all of you in a free session. Hope you enjoyed watching this session, right? If you have a question, maybe 1 or 2 is what I can take up, otherwise we can close the session. Right? I hope you all enjoyed the session and this was useful for you. Right? So for more information about how to enroll for a particular course or how to take the All India mock test, the support team, which is working simultaneously as this session is going on, is going to post it on the chat. Okay, so all those who have questions pertaining to what is the content, how can we access these sessions after the live session is over, all those questions will be answered by the support team along with numbers and the website address, which will be posted on the chat for you so that you can get the information right and you can get back to us for whatever your need be. All right. Okay, Gauri, that's an interesting question. How to clear SBI PO English section? All right. Doing small things right. Okay. Paying attention to details. Working on your strengths. Taking a lot of tests. Following PRs or any expert guides. Feedback. Identifying your strengths and making sure that they always work for you and working on your weaker areas. I think that's essentially the success mantra for everything, right? I wish I could say there's just one thing that you do when you clear an SBI exam. I wish I could say that, but that's not true. So the only way to achieving your dream is by practicing, and practicing. All right, guys. I think on that note, I can say bye to you. I love taking this session, and I hope you guys enjoyed watching it too. All right. Thank you very much, guys. Have a great evening. Okay. Sorry. Before I log off, Gurpreet asked, how do we choose? Like I said, I think what you asked, if you could just post those 2 words again, right? When you say enable or facilitate, or there is always a thin difference between words. So I think I'm unable to recollect the words. If you could just quickly post those 2 words, okay? Enhance and increase. All right. Increase is something, enhance is with an external push, okay? You need an external driving force to enhance something. Increase, it can do by itself. All right, for anything to enhance. So you can enhance your education by doing something, right? By practicing something or by watching videos. But to increase it is something you don't need an external force. It is from within. Okay, so it appears, they both appear as synonyms, but if you really have to differentiate, then yes, that's the thin line of difference. All right. Well, great, Gurpreet. Thanks for asking that question. I hope all of you enjoyed this session. And always stay tuned for these free live sessions. All right, guys, have a great evening. Bye-bye.